introduction is for everybody is going to be, about 5 to 8 minutes. And then I think that Anne does want to have some time at the end if we have time, because I know Danielle is also going to be going through a few slides, and there was a new speaker that was added. So I think it'll be, I'm actually worried that we're not going to have enough time. But we'll see. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, good morning, or sorry, afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you guys get the tweet that was sent out a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes ago?
No.
Yeah, Andrea sent out a tweet, a social media kit for us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I seen the kit. Oh.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Hi, Anne.
All right. Hi. It's so nice to see you all.
We can't see you though, Anne.
Oh, my camera's not on?
I can see her.
I can also see her. Maybe
I can't see her.
let me pin Anne. Can you see Anne now?
No, I can see everyone except Anne.
Oh, how weird.
Uh-oh.
Everyone else can see Anne?
I can. Yeah, it looks like Angel can.
Oh, wow.
You know what is weird? I'm looking at the where it says attendees. Everyone has a camera, a microphone, and then 3 little dots. I just have a camera and a microphone. I don't have those 3 little dots. I don't know if that...
Yeah. I don't have the 3 dots on mine. I see it on you guys's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was trying to think what might be different about mine. Paul, I'm going to try and turn my camera off. Now it's off, and then I'll turn it on. Did
There
that
you
work?
go. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you all so much. I think, yeah, I appreciate you jumping on early. I just wanted to make sure, we all got in, we're comfortable with things. Another speaker, Nabila Sosa, was added on Friday afternoon. So I, just kind of added her since kind of Paul and Angel and Ronell, have all been working on kind of, fine and fee justice coalitions. I thought it made the most sense. Like, I'll still ask the 3 of you a bunch of questions. Then we'll turn it to Nabila, and then we'll turn it to you, Danielle. Does that work for you? for everybody? Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, and I think we'll just, yeah, like, please, oh, one other thing we were, I think gonna do, the timing might be tight, and so, you know, I updated the document with some times, and I think, like, you know, if you get to the end of, you know, like the 5 minutes or the 3 minutes, I think Cecilia's going to like private chat you and just say, hey, like, you know, your time, just friendly reminder, your time's up. We're not trying to be obnoxious or anything, but I think we just want to make sure we're all very passionate about this work. And, you know, I think any of us can talk for a really long time about it. So we just want to make sure we have time for everything. But is that okay with folks if Cecilia private chats you? Okay. Okay, good. Angel, you look great. Everyone looks good. Their cameras all ready and awesome. Okay. So I think we're at 10 till. Yeah, I'll hang up. I'll just hang out and make sure. And Cecilia, maybe you can too, just so we can orient Ronell and Nabila when she joins.
Yeah, I think we can all hang out just to make sure that we're in the session when it starts.
Yeah.
And if you want to go off camera, feel free to do so.
Okay. Yeah, here comes Nabila. Hi. Hi, Nabila. Welcome.
I think you're on mute.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I apologize. This is like new. It's a weird. Yes, but I'm here. Sorry about that. I'm late. I apologize.
No, you're not late. Thank you for jumping on early. I had a lot of problems. I was supposed to present at a conference on this platform a few weeks ago, and I couldn't get in. So I'm glad we're all here, and that hasn't happened to any of you. So Nabila, I was just saying, I sent the prep document. You know, I think it's going to be just like we chatted about. I'm going to ask, you know, Paul and Angel and Ronell a few questions, turn to you, and then we'll turn to Danielle. I think that the timing might be a little tight, and I know we're all passionate about this work. So if it's okay, Cecilia, like, I know I'm asking you like 2 questions. You're going to take like 5 or so minutes to answer those. You know, Nabila, when the time's up, I think Cecilia might, if you have your chat open, she'll just private chat you saying, you know, the 5 minutes is up. We're not trying to be obnoxious or anything. I think we just want to make sure we have time for everybody and that we have time for questions, if that's okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and the chat is the one on my right-hand side, right? The one that says, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Great. I saw it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I think we're just waiting for Ronell. Oh, wait, let me see. Oh, yeah, Nabila, I see you figured it out. I'm just seeing your text message.
Just really quickly, do we know if this one has the ability to blur? Just because my mother-in-law is visiting and like she continues. I just want to make sure. If not, I can move my. Yeah, I just want to make sure.
That is an excellent question. Gosh, I don't know. Cecilia, do you know?
I think it looks like not. I see Andrea shaking their head. People
It doesn't,
understand.
unfortunately. Hi. I just give a check in. I'm not going to stay. It doesn't. We don't have the ability to do like green screen or backgrounds or blurred things like that. unfortunately. So I apologize. If you
I'll
need
just
to
make
take
sure to
yourself, you can take yourself on and off camera
Yeah.
as you like. Okay.
Totally. Yeah.
We've got great attendance so far, you guys. I'm really excited.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks,
Yeah.
Andrea, for making the space for us to do this.
You know, I'm really happy
excited
that you
about it.
guys all worked it out and that you were able to welcome Nabila too.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I think I'm hoping Ronell is, let me see.
I'm going to check in on the other group. Just before I go, just
Sure.
recognize that there's a delay in the broadcast, right? So just before you close the session, just like give it a good 2 minutes before you end, because I think it's like a 2 to 3 minute delay.
Just for clarity, do I have to leave this space or am I?
No, you're good.
Okay.
You're good.
And Andrea, folks will just start coming in a little bit. Is that right? But we're the only ones who'll be on camera. Is that
That's
right?
correct. If
Okay.
folks come in and they are on camera, you can take them off camera. So on the upper right-hand side, you'll see attendees. So Ronell is here, but he doesn't
he
seem to be
is?
on camera.
Oh,
I'm not quite sure. Let me, if I can't invite him to the stage for some reason. Oh, I thought I changed the spelling of his name. I had it wrong. Let me make sure I can do that. Yeah, we have 34 people registered for your event.
oh, great. Is there something I should email Ronell or?
One moment, let me just.
Maybe that Excel events email, because I know there's a specific link that you have to click on.
Yeah, Cecilia,
That
would
was
you?
the one that worked for me.
Yeah, Cecilia, would you send that to him? Thank
Sure.
you.
All right, I'm just gonna work on something real quick, and then I'm gonna check in on the other group.
Okay.
I have a quick question. So this session that we're in is a total from 1 to 2:45, or is that the entire event?
It's 1 to 2:25, and then at 2:30 there will be another 2 panels.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, there he is.
There. Okay, good. I'm leaving the stage. You guys got it. You guys have figured out how to work with the Q&A and the chat and all of that. So I'll just show up as an attendee.
Thank you, Andrea. Hi, Ronell.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
How you doing?
I'm good. I was having some issues logging on. I guess it wasn't allowing me to join at first, but then it was
Okay.
open.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little tricky. I'm so glad you're here.
Me too.
Yeah, so I think we are going to get started in just a minute. Hi, everybody. I think we're just giving this a second. I think people are jumping in. We'll just give people another minute. Welcome. Hi, everybody. I think we're just going to give folks another minute or two just to jump in to the session. Welcome. Glad you're here. Okay, why don't we go ahead and kick this off? I think more folks are registered for this and are going to be joining. It's the lunch hour, so I think people may be wrapping things up. Can everyone hear me? Yes? Okay, great. Welcome. So glad you're here. The name of this panel is Case Studies, Advocacy Led by People with Lived Experience. My name is Ann Stuhldreher. I direct the Financial Justice Project for the City and County of San Francisco out of the Treasurer's Office. We're set up to assess and reform fines, fees, tickets, financial penalties that we all know can hit people really hard, strip any limited wealth that they do have and savings, and especially hit people of color really hard. You know, I've been so lucky over the past few years to work on advocacy at the state level in coalition with many folks who are on this call and who not only have direct experience with these issues, but have taken on kind of leadership roles within these coalitions. We also have panelists who are going to be speaking about really cutting edge kind of strategies to build micro savings for their members, have their members' experience drive a policy agenda, and also to focus on guaranteed income. I think we're going to keep it pretty casual. I'm going to be asking folks some questions. We're going to see a video. We're going to see some slides at some point. But yeah, just really excited that we're all here for this important discussion. I am going to just introduce all of our panelists and kind of ask them to wave when I introduce them so you can see them. We're going to put their bios in the chat. And I also want to welcome my colleague Cecilia Perez, who's here and who is also with the Financial Justice Project. So first off, Angel Rice, want to welcome you here. Angel is the co-founder of Empowering Women Impacted by Incarceration. Paul Briley is also here, and Paul is the regional coordinator of All of Us or None. Third panelist I'd like to introduce is Ronell Hampton. Hi, Ronell, who is the founder of Growing Greatness Now. I'd also like to welcome Nabila Sosa. Nabila is the Advocacy Program Manager of the National Council of Jewish Women of Los Angeles. And finally, we have Danielle Bautista, who is with us. And Danielle is a senior associate at SaverLife. So welcome to all of you. I think at first I'd like to start with Angel, Paul, and Ronell, who all have been working to advance kind of fine and feed justice at the state level. And so, Angel, maybe I'll start with you, if that's okay. I'd love it if you could, Angel, tell us about yourself and really what led you to co-found Empowering Women Impacted by Incarceration. I think, some people really may not understand the heavy financial burden and the costs that folks and family members, often have to bear if they have an incarcerated loved one. And, I'd love it if you could tell us about these costs and what really motivated you to get involved and take on a leadership role in the Keep Families Connected Coalition.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me. Again, my name is Angel Rice, and I am the co-founder of Empowering Women Impacted by Incarceration. I am directly impacted as well as indirectly impacted. My husband is currently serving a sentence of 90 years to life. And I started this organization with my co-founder because we wanted to make a space for women that were impacted, that needed resources, needed guidance, assistance, or even a listening ear on this journey. It's not an easy journey. There are times where we struggle mentally, financially, and we deal with the stigmatism of supporting someone who is incarcerated. So we wanted to make sure that there was a safe space for us. We got involved with the Keeping Families Connected Coalition because we wanted to help make a change in this. Families are financially burdened by this. The families hold the weight of paying restitution. Families hold the weight of making sure that their loved ones are cared for in prison or in county jails. We pay for their food, their hygiene, canteen. We pay for phone calls, video calls, for use of tablets, for correspondence programs. The burden weighs heavily on us. A lot of families struggle financially, and these small changes that we are working on to make, as far as reducing the cost for the phone calls so that families can stay connected, because the connection part of it is helping them on their road to rehabilitation. That's the goal for CDCR, is to help families rehabilitate. And without that connection, they don't have that. It affects their mental as well as ours. So currently, previously calls were 7 cents a minute, and family in certain prisons, they're allowed to make multiple phone calls. Families have to struggle with wanting to know if they're going to be able to accept the phone call or purchase food or come to visit, because we also bear the burden of getting to visit, paying for food to eat in the visiting rooms. And our loved ones, their incomes range from 2 cents, sometimes $1 at most. So they're unable to pay for those costs. So we carry that burden. Currently, it costs roughly, at minimum, $200 for one person to visit their loved one in prison or in a county jail. Most of us live over 100 miles away from our loved ones. For instance, myself, I live 150 miles away from my husband. I visit him every weekend. For me to fill up my car, it's $80. That's a round trip, $80. Then for me to feed him there, we can bring in a minimum of $70. And $70 is spent on vending food items. On top of the $70, I have his monthly canteen package, which is for his hygiene items to clean his clothing, food that that will compensate for the inadequate amount of food that they get. So and on top of that, I will send him $100, but on top of the $100, I have to pay a 50% restitution fee. So I have to wind up sending $200 so that he can have $100 to maintain him for the rest of the month. And every quarter, I'm spending between $320 to $450 to make sure that he has enough hygiene and food to compensate for the quarter. So that cost adds up tremendously. If I were to bring my mother-in-law or my bonus daughter to visit, I'm paying $70 additional for her to come, and I'm paying $40 additional for my daughter to come as well. So the burden of these fees that are impacted on families can make it hard for people to stay connected. So for that, we try to keep families connected. We try to reduce the burdens. And that's why I do this, to make this journey a little bit easier. And some people might ask, why do you want to do that? Why are you supporting someone who's incarcerated? Well, because of humanity. Everybody needs love. Everybody needs support, and everybody needs a helping hand. And because of poor decision making at some part of our life, we have the opportunity to change that, to help them change. So why not?
Yeah. Angel, thanks so much for telling us about that and laying out for everyone all those costs. And I think it's, you can see how they can add up, especially, for folks who really can't afford to lose them. And in many cases, the state is shifting the costs kind of onto, people's families. Paul, I'd love to bring you in here now, Paul Briley from All of Us or None. And Paul, I wonder if you can tell us about yourself and All of Us or None. And Paul, you're on the steering committee of the Debt-Free Justice California Coalition. And just, why is the work of this coalition important to you? And can you tell us some about All of Us or None's members' experiences with fines and fees?
Sure. Thanks for having me. My name is Paul Briley, and I am the regional coordinator for All of Us or None. We are dedicated to addressing issues related to mass incarceration and the criminal legal system generally. I was raised in Bayview Hunters Point District of San Francisco, a community that has seen its fair share of social problems over the years. My lived experience has deepened my understanding of the flawed justice system. I experienced recidivism at a very young age. I come from an underprivileged background, yet unfortunately in 2019, I was given the opportunity to work with All of Us or None. They were seeking to train people who were formerly incarcerated to become community organizers, researchers, and policy advocates. That same year, I helped restore the right to vote to 50,000 people on parole in California by co-sponsoring ACA 6. That same year, I also had the opportunity to help lead the People Over Profits campaign in San Francisco, where we successfully advocated for an ordinance change that required the city and its vendors to stop generating revenue from incarcerated people and their loved ones. San Francisco became the first city in the nation to make jail phone calls free and end the markup of commissary items in the county jail. After the success in San Francisco, I was recruited by the statewide consortium of legal advocates and policy experts, Debt-Free Justice, to be part of the statewide coalition campaign that helped to pass AB 1869, which addressed similar issues at the California state level. AB 1869 eliminated a lot of administrative fees that were imposed on people in the criminal justice system. And after that, I also helped spearhead a commissary allowance pilot program in San Francisco County Jail. People incarcerated in San Francisco County Jail who have little or no support from the outside now receive a $20 monthly allowance to purchase essential hygiene items and food from the jail store or commissary. To bring it a little more up to date, the People Over Profits Ordinance made phone calls in the San Francisco County Jail free, but that victory in San Francisco also influenced legislation that we were proud co-sponsors of this year, SB 1008, which eliminated all telecommunication fees for phone calls to and from currently incarcerated people in California state prisons and youth facilities. As far as like our members and how I see this impact our members, I see this directly impact my family. My cousin is looking at the next 42 years in prison, and I am one of the only ones that, you know, he has to support him along his journey. However, whenever I put money on his books, so he can, you know, go to the store and buy something to eat, they actually take 55% of all of the money that I put on his books. So it's making it very hard for me to support my cousin when every $100 that I put, he's only receiving $45 of it. And if that's not enough, the commissary items actually increased in price as a result of the last couple of months. So, you know, he's reached out to me and said that he actually needs me to put more money on his books. And it's just becoming very frustrating that I have to, you know, put more money on his books, but he's continuing to receive a lesser amount. As Angel mentioned earlier, these are burdens that are falling on the families of the currently incarcerated people and family members who have done nothing wrong. Yet we carry the burden of making sure that our loved one has adequate access to hygiene and food, things that should be provided for free of charge. I am very passionate about eliminating these fines and fees, just because, like as I mentioned, I see it show up in my life as well as my community. I love to see the immediate impact and relief that is brought to my community as a result of my advocacy. I mentioned AB 1869 earlier, and that eliminated all of the eliminated 23 administrative fees, as well as retroactive debt from civil assessments. And that actually went into place this year. And as of July 1st this year, that eliminated all retroactive debt related to civil assessments in California. And moving forward, it also capped the $300 penalty to $100. As I mentioned before, what brings me joy is to see the immediate relief brought to those who are close to me. Yet there is still a long way to go. We are demanding a full repeal of civil assessments because we know Black and Browns people are the ones who are targeted. I witnessed my coworkers have family members. One of my coworkers has a brother who owes $1 million in restitution. I don't understand how someone can owe that much in restitution. You know, they've like how can they contribute and be a productive member in society when they have all of this debt hanging over their head? And there's a presumed assumption that, you know, someone is rehabilitated upon the completion of their sentence, yet we don't offer them support to reintegrate and successfully reenter into the society. And through eliminating these fines and fees is one way we can assist them.
Paul, thanks so much for laying that out. And yes, you've been very busy both in San Francisco and through the Debt Free Justice California Coalition. I'd like to, Ronell, bring you up, and Ronell Hampton, who founded Growing Greatness Now. And Ronell, I thought we could play a video that actually you're featured in just to kick us off. You know, there's so many inequities in our child support system. Ronell and a lot of us worked to create this video with Robert Reich and Kamau Bell a few years ago. And Cecilia, could I ask you to just cue this up and play it? It's just a few minutes.
Yes, I'm pulling it up right as we speak.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm W. Kamau Bell. And I'm Robert Reich. We're teaming up to explain why almost everything you think you know about California child support is probably wrong.
For instance, the name, child support. That indicates it's money that will always go to supporting a child, right? Wrong.
In California, when low-income parents, usually fathers, make child support payments, the majority of the money does not go to their children. It goes to the government to cover the cost of public assistance that went to the mother or child. Only the first $50 of your child support payments actually support your child.
That's exactly what happened to Ronell. When Ronell was a kid in San Diego, his dad worked as a maintenance worker and had $600 garnished from his wages each pay period for child support. Because of how the child support system works, his family only received $50. $550 went to the government.
And just so it's crystal clear, this is not about middle and upper income dads who can pay child support but won't. Their support checks, when they do pay them, go to their kids and not the government. This is about a policy that hurts low-income families.
And of course, mostly low-income families of color. In California, more than 2/3 of the children who've had their child support payment intercepted are from families of color. So it's a bad policy born out of, guess what? A long history of racism.
If parents cannot pay because they lose their job or their hours get cut, it goes from bad to worse. A domino effect of penalties is set in motion. They begin to accrue debt. California charges 10% interest on the child support debt owed to the government, one of the highest rates in the country. Until you pay the debt, your paycheck gets garnished. Your bank account gets levied. Credit scores plummet. Your driver's license may be suspended, which makes it harder to keep a job and make money.
But my turn to be crystal clear, this isn't a video about the challenges of being a low-income parent. That's not news to anybody. It is a video about a bad policy that makes a difficult situation almost impossible and affects hundreds of thousands of families. A bad policy that last year redirected $368 million away from children.
Exactly right. I basically said that. It's a bad policy.
I think I added, fleshed it out a little.
States do have the power to stop this, and some have. In Colorado, all of parents' child support payments go to their children. When they made the change in Colorado, child support payments jumped 63%. That's why San Francisco did an experiment to find out what would happen if California fixed the policy. San Francisco paid off the debt a group of parents owed to the government so that all of their payments would go to their kids.
And spoiler alert, they found everything got better when child support went to supporting children. Imagine that. Better for the kids, the dads, the moms, all the parents. Rainbows came out on clear days and unicorns were real.
Specifically, parents paid more child support more regularly since they knew the money was going to their children. Parents' credit scores, housing status, and overall financial status improved. Their parents' relationships with their children, even their co-parents, improved. It was good for individual families as well as their communities.
That's basically what I just said.
I know, I just added, fleshed it out. The point is that California child support laws are horribly broken and they need fixing.
And when child support laws get unbroken and support children, everybody wins.
And that's something we agree on.
We actually agree on a lot.
Absolutely.
Go to truthandjusticeandchildsupport.org to learn more.
Thanks, Cecilia. Yeah, and thanks. That's something that Ronell and a bunch of us worked to create a few years ago. Thanks everyone for watching that. And Ronell, I'd love it if you could just tell us a little more about yourself and your work and just what's on your mind when you see that video. And is there anything else you'd like people to understand about the child support system?
Thank you so much, Anne. As Anne mentioned, my name is Ronell Hampton. I am the founder of Growing Greatness Now. We're a policy and urban design consulting firm. And I'm actually really excited to be here because the first time I connected with the Truth and Justice Coalition was at the, 2018 California Asset Building Coalition Conference. And it's where I learned about child support policy. and the direct impact it had on my life. Before attending the conference, I had no idea how complex the child support system was and the role it played in my father's life in relation to the garnishment of his wages. So, of course, after going through the workshop presented by Krista Brown, who's a great colleague of mine now, I was just like mind blown. And so I immediately called my father and I'm like, so how much was getting taken out of your check, right? And it was like this watershed moment and this realization of the inequity as far as policy and the impact it had on my family's livelihood, our economic stability. Just to put it into context, my siblings and I, I'm one of 6 children. We grew up on public assistance. My siblings and I were in foster care during our adolescence, and we eventually were brought back in the care of my mother. And during that time, we were on public assistance. And as the videos explained, when families are on public assistance and there is an order for child support garnishments, the non-custodial parents' garnishments goes majority to the government. So you can imagine in my household with 6 children and a single mother on public assistance, that public assistance wasn't stretching long enough. And to know that $600 was getting garnished from my father's check and not being brought into our household when we were having to deal with things like our water being cut off sometimes, electricity, just a lot of things that in context, like, wow. So there was like this $600+ that we were supposed to have in our household to make it more stable, and it just wasn't coming through. In addition to that, there was a dynamic between my father and I that was impacted, right? When there were moments where I needed financial support, I didn't know that my father was already dealing with a garnishment, right? And my father remarried, had a household of his own. So his funding had to stretch in his own household in addition to my mother's household. But again, it wasn't making it there. So the work that we organized since 2018, it's interesting to watch this video now because we've made a lot of wins, right? Like I'm listening to this and I'm like, wow, we really went into the trenches and we fought to address this. Before I go into those wins, one of the things that I feel is important to highlight, and Paul really brought this up, is that lived experience is expertise. And it really was my lived experience that helped me relate to the policy issue on a different level and allowed me to engage in the process of addressing the policy differently. This collaboration with Robert Reich and Kamal Bell is crazy, right? I've watched the infographics. I'm not sure if you all are fans of infographics like me, but those are amazing. And I've watched several of Robert Reich, specifically. His infographics are always awesome. So this opportunity to share my lived experience and put it in a position to move the policy work forward was impactful. And it's also representative of the work that we do with Growing Greatness Now, when we work with people that have impacted lived experience across issues that impact academics, economics, and health, and ensure that they're leaders and collaborators in these decisions, right, around policy or even urban design practices. So by leveraging my lived experience and other folks a part of the coalition, we were able to achieve a lot of wins. For the sake of time, I'll talk about this year's wins. 2022, we were able to achieve Senate Bill 1055, which will protect low-income parents from driver's license suspension. That was mentioned in the video, right? The Department of Child Support Services will not be allowed to submit to the DMV the name of any parent with household incomes at or below 70% of the median income in the county the parent resides. License suspensions are not an effective method, as we've been able to uncover through our work. And another win is Assembly Bill 1686, Assemblymember Bryan, AB 1686, which will significantly limit the Department of Social Services from referring families in the foster care system program to DCSS for recruitment of those child support payable to the state. The bill recognizes that paying child support to the state is likely a hindering of unification of families and unnecessarily extends the child's time in foster care. So this disparity also of Black and brown families dealing with the child support system is also an example of how policy has consistently impacted along race-based practices, right? We also have a lot of goals and priorities coming up for the 2023 legislation session, which include eliminating existing government-owed child support debt for low-income parents. There's currently $6.5 billion in child support debt owed by low-income parents in the state of California. And so this is something that we're working tirelessly to address. We currently have addressed $400 million in arrears. And again, we're working to address that $6.5 billion that's still hunting many low-income families. We're also addressing lowering the state interest rate from that 10%. Again, many families who are unable to pay child support are now being taxed that 10% interest on debt that they have in child support. So we're really trying to address that, either lower it or eliminate it. One step at a time, we're working on lowering it. Another goal of ours is to resolve currently suspended driver's license. These ideas of, once we get a policy passed, you really have to follow through with addressing the implementation practices, because a lot of times there's gaps in the way a policy is implemented. So oftentimes the heavy work happens after we get a policy passed, when we're really trying to ensure that the infrastructure around that passed policy is effective in achieving not only the outcome, but also impacting the target demographic that we hope to benefit from that infrastructure. The last thing I'll mention is the goal we have to set a fair order truly based on ability to pay or at a specific percent of income. Many times when these child support orders are established, they're creating numbers based off of an imagined income that a non-custodial parent has. Sometimes these non-custodial parents are well below the poverty line. Sometimes they're incarcerated. So creating a phantom number to identify their ability to pay is something that definitely needs to change. So those are our priorities. But again, I do want to highlight the importance of ensuring that as we do this policy work, that we're working with impacted people, not only as a check the box off, but as leaders and collaborators, right? I'm honored and privileged to be in this position to leverage my lived experience, but also my academic and professional experience in these spaces. However, academic and professional is not the ticket to the party, right? We have to ensure that we allow people to leverage their lived experiences, expertise, and give them the opportunity to participate in the outcomes that they need in their lived experiences that they're having.
Yeah. Thank you, Ronell. Well said. I just want to underscore, what we just heard from Angel, Paul, and Ronell. So, again, because of their work and these coalitions, Angel in the Keep Families Connected coalition, free phone calls in the state of California. We are the first large state to make this happen, lifting a burden off of folks. They're moving forward. There is going to be a bill this year to stop, marking up items like crazy in the jail store, again, which is very similar, hits folks very hard. Paul Briley with All of Us or None, the Debt Free Justice California Coalition, has eliminated billions of dollars in outstanding kind of high pain, low gain court fees that, I think aren't really needed. And then, Ronell, I also want to underscore, starting in 2025, whenever a parent makes a child support payment, 100% of that will go through to their children. This is going to help hundreds of thousands of families across California. We're not going to be, the state government is not going to be intercepting those payments. So, a lot achieved, still more work to do, as you've all said. We're going to put the contact info for all of these coalitions. So please, if you want to get involved, please join us. So I'd like to, kind of bring us to the last question for the three of you. and Ronell, you started to speak to this, but, the name of this panel is Case Studies, Advocacy Led by People with Lived Experience. You all have lived experiences with these challenges. You've all taken on leadership roles in these coalitions. And I'd just like you to reflect on that for a little bit. Like, what has been kind of easy about your participation in these coalitions? What has been hard about it, and what advice would you have? I think so many of us are involved in, trying to build coalitions that are really kind of inclusive spaces where everyone is valued. But yeah, just if you have any, so reflect on kind of what's went well, maybe not so well, and just what advice you'd have for folks in other coalitions. And so Angel, yeah, maybe I'll start with you on that question.
Okay, I would say I was incredibly nervous when we got started on this bill. I did not think that we were going to make it through, but we fought through, regardless of what we were feeling along the way. The pushback we got, it was amazing. It's an amazing feeling to be able to make change, to be able to help people. So I'm so happy, and can't wait for our next steps.
Paul, anything on your mind?
Sure. I'll just say, like, making sure to center the directly impacted person and uplift their experience and make sure that they lead the cause. Oftentimes when working alongside allies, when you are the impacted person, it can become a little intimidating and frustrating, especially when they're all using a language that you're not used to using. And I just, would encourage you to have the confidence to check their privilege. And I say that because oftentimes when working in these spaces, there are a lot of individuals who speak on behalf of others who they have no related lived experience whatsoever. And oftentimes they think they are making the best decision for a population that they cannot identify with. And that is why it is very important to have someone with relevant and lived experience at the table. I've encountered this several times, whereas, I'm at a table full of lawyers, and because they can't, accomplish or get what they want, they're willing to sacrifice something that could have a major, impact on the community. Whereas I am glad and thankful that I am able to represent the population that doesn't have that platform to speak for themselves. And just because you can't or you don't, have the language or the academic background, that is no reason why you should not be at the table. And the truth of the matter is, our lived experience equipped us with more skills and qualifies us to speak for these issues more so than someone who went to school for it. There's people, who can go to school for African American studies, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have an African American lived experience in America. And I say all of that to say, make sure you center the impacted person and uplift their experience mindfully.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, appreciate you putting that out there. Ronell, just lastly, what's on your mind as you think about, coalitions, or, you've been a part of, what's gone well, not well? What advice would you have for others?
Well, in regards to participating in these type of initiatives, I think having an open mind is super important. Like Paul was mentioning, I think these spaces can be intimidating, but don't feel intimidated. I think most people who do things that are impactful are not doing them without fear, right? They're doing them with fear and keeping, just going forward instead of letting that fear stop them. The other thing that I would say is make room, right? Make room for other folks to join the work. Organizations who are doing the work, they should be partnering with philanthropic organizations. Earlier this year, I attended the Asset Funders Network conference, and we talked about the importance of funding the movement. And that's important because many folks who are impacted aren't being compensated for the lean into the work, right? And so I think that that's a capacity opportunity to build funding to, ensure that there's funding to get folks to testify at the state capitol, and funding to pay for their lodging or whatever it is to make sure not only they can thrive while they're participating, but also their expertise, their lived experience expertise is compensated, right? So that's a capacity opportunity that I think can be supported with philanthropic organizations. The other thing is, I feel like there's this opportunity to address like the career pathways that exist, right? So not only this like one drop in the bucket, but like how are we creating career pathways for folks who have been in these spaces? I do want to uplift two folks on my team right now that are on the call, Adriana and Brianna Scott. I've brought them into this work really for them to learn about how to organize policy initiatives and how to engage with the American Civil Liberties Union and the Western Center for Law and Poverty. Both of them are working to get their masters in public policy. And so these experiences give folks lived experience in the professional and academic space as well. So I think that that's a great thing to think about. I feel that this space has also supported my professional development, right? I currently serve as the principal equity strategist with the LA Civil Rights Department. And in that role, I was able to architect a 5-year action plan for the Office of Racial Equity. And a lot of that was centered around making sure whatever policy decisions we were making were centered in the community's vision. Also working to address criminal justice fines and fees and the administration of fees at the city level, right? So a lot of what I've learned in these spaces have allowed me to become a well-rounded professional in the policy and urban design space. So it's super critical to create pathways and opportunities for the folks that we're introducing to this work, and not just like a transactional interaction, but more building this lifelong partnership and this lifelong coalition. Because many of us who do this work know that equity is not a destination, it's a journey. And once we accomplish something, we have to hold the line. It doesn't stay unless we work for it to stay. And the only way that we work for it to stay is if we have people to replace us once we transition to our next position or whatever role we have or whatever. We need to make sure that we have folks to take up the space. So I want to end again and say make room and really be critical about the pathways of opportunity that are being built when we're inviting people into the work.
Thank you, Ronell. Well said. Nabila, I'd love to bring you into this now. Nabila Sosa is, as I mentioned earlier, with the National Council of Jewish Women in Los Angeles. And Nabila, I wonder if you could tell us about yourself and your work at the council.
Yes, of course. First, thank you, Angel, Paul, and Ronell for sharing your side, your perspective. I always find it so amazing when I get to hear from folks really doing the work in the ground. As Anne said, my name is Nabila Sosa, and I am the advocacy manager here at the National Council of Jewish Women. I myself am in a position of a lot of privilege, and the fact that I'm a proud Afro-Latina. I am an immigrant. I come from immigrant parents. I didn't even know what policy was before I got, in touch with the education system. But ever since I was little, I've been affected by the systems, right? And understanding that my parents had to deal with coming into a new country, not knowing the language, let alone the way of the laws here, really got me interested in understanding why things were the way they were, and giving the opportunity to come to NCWLA and really use their expertise and the long-standing amazing work that they've been doing throughout the community for years and years now, allowed me to leverage my lived experience, my education, and then really begin to see myself as a microphone or a megaphone for individuals like myself to gain the knowledge and gain the experience to become advocates and the drivers of their own stories. I think that the panelists before I said it better than I could say. Oftentimes we forget that those folks that have the lived experience are the experts and knowing what works for them. I've been part of other organizations where we've had so much money given to communities and those initiatives fail. And that is because the community is not being heard, and because oftentimes they come with a savior complex rather than, a bottom-up approach. So part of the work that I do here at NCWLA is understanding the way in which we can bring that lens of how can we best equip our volunteers and our advocates with the knowledge, the skills, and really not so much teaching them how to speak, but or teaching them how to tell their story, but really just allowing them to fine-tune their message, allowing them to live through sometimes the trauma and the experience to get what they want to get. I think that is the way that we begin to think about changing systems. So, I'm like I said, I'm in a space of privilege that I get to work with community and in community. And I get to learn from experts like folks in this call that then allow me to better understand how the work that we do is impacting folks, not only short term, but long term.
Nabila, thanks so much. Just want to see if there's anything you'd like to add. You guys are doing such important work in LA and at the state level, and I believe some work on a guaranteed income. And, just would love to hear, from your perspective, what is really needed, what needs to happen to really kind of realize the potential of guaranteed income in California.
Yes, thank you for that, Anne. So, we historically have been involved in a lot of amazing work around social justice. And a few years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, a new amazing leader and CEO came to the organization, and she really wanted to be a little bit more thoughtful and mindful of how we thought about social services. So we really got connected with rethinking and reframing the way in which we were providing services in our advocacy pieces as well. So we really went from we do anything that our community wants and we help in many ways, to really thinking about how can we be more focused on economic justice and equity. So within that, journey of us rethinking and reframing the work, we began to read and understand more about GI as a movement, right? And as a way of changing the systems that historically have oppressed folks, Black and brown folks, and then, immigrant families, and just really understanding how GI could be a vehicle to helping people alleviate poverty, but really giving folks the tools and the skills that they need to lift themselves out of poverty, right? So we really began to think about GI in that way. And as we began to learn more, we began to understand that if we wanted to see something come to fruition, that we needed to begin the work. So, part of like the CEO and my director and the board was to, you know, put our money where, right? How they say, like, put your money where, you know, put the money where you really want it. So within that, we were able to allocate funds to do a very tiny baby pilot where we gave women, 12 women, $1,000 for 12 months. And it was a tiny project compared to this like multi-billion-dollar pilots out there, you know, but we were really proud of the work. And that really allowed us to begin to put the pieces together. From that, we were able to elevate the work and actually secure additional funding. And even from that, from the fact that we became baby experts, experts in the making of the GI movement, we began to think of how can we then connect our advocacy work, which historically has been one of the strongest pieces of our work, to the guaranteed income. And then came the birth of our advocacy training project, which, as Paul, Angel, and Ronell mentioned all in their when they were speaking, is that how can we then provide the knowledge and the skills that our experts need, those folks that have lived through it, that are experiencing the improvements and the benefits of GI, how can they become the face of this movement? How can it be less of this, like, you know, utopia, this like, oh my God, one day we'll get here and there's so much work to do, but how can we quantify and tell the stories of the folks that were able to stay home, the folks that no longer have to have 2 or 3 jobs and they can stay now at home, or that they can afford to pay for their car note and their food, right? How can we really leverage those stories so that policymakers start realizing that with GI, we can begin to think differently in the way in which we are assisting folks, right? That we're not just giving them handouts, but that we're allowing them to be and dictate how they want to spend their money and their lives. And that oftentimes, if giving them money, they're not going to go spend it in alcohol or drugs or whatever, all these like stereotypes that folks have, but that they're using the money the best way they can. And I'll stop talking by telling you that low-income folks, immigrant folks, they're the most clever, the most resourceful, the most innovative individuals, because we often have lived through that. We know how to stretch $1. We know how to stretch, you know, a cup of noodles to feed 4 or 5 kids. Or so with a little bit of more money, we're just going to become more inventive, and we're going to be able to fund that passion, you know, that we've had, or you know, be able to help others in our family. So I think that GI is just another way in which we can begin to change the frameworks in which we think of low-income people and really give them back that autonomy, that you know, that and that freedom, economic freedom that they so desperately need.
Yeah, Nabila, thank you so much. You know, for laying that out there. It's such important work. We all have so much to learn from it. Danielle, I'd love to bring you into the conversation now, and, you know, tell us what you're up to at SaverLife and how you all are working with your members.
Sure, and I have I have a few slides if that's okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay. But I'll start by saying hello. My name is Danielle Bautista. I am the Senior Policy Associate at SaverLife. I don't know if you all can see my screen. Oh, it doesn't look like I have permission to share. But that's okay. I can go ahead and share it in a follow-up if
Danielle, you can try again. You were pinned, so maybe now that I unpinned you, you can try again.
Oh, perfect. Oh, it says it's still maybe not working.
Okay, you can, let me see if I can try and figure this out, or Andrea, if you want to jump in here.
Yeah, I think Andrea may have left Cecilia. So, Danielle, I don't know if you can email it to Cecilia. We could maybe see if she could, and if you could, yeah, just start talking. Again,
Sure.
apologies. Okay.
No worries, no worries at all. But yeah, my name is Danielle Batista, Senior Policy Associate at SaverLife. And I, similar to Nabila, want to thank all the other panelists for opening up and sharing all your experiences. I think it's really important to elevate beyond statistics. People's stories. And so a little bit about SaverLife. We actually started as a local nonprofit in San Francisco, California back in 2001. And what we did back then was help folks with the match savings program and matching their IDA accounts. So that's individual development accounts. So whether someone was wanting to start a small business or save for a car or home, we helped families do that. And a couple years into the work, folks at SaverLife realized that we could take something like this national, and so that's what we did. In 2017, we rebranded from Earn to now SaverLife, and we're doing something similar on a national scale, which is helping low to moderate income households turn their short-term savings into long-term generational wealth. I think, as we all know, that is definitely the goal. And a little bit about our demographics. We have about 600,000 folks nationwide, a majority of them a majority of our members living in California, which makes sense. That's where we have our roots in. 82% of our membership is actually made up of women, and the average income of each household, or the national income average, is about $31,000 as well. So a bit about the advocacy work we're doing. I'll take us back to a couple years ago where, we were sharing, we had a number of research studies, and we were also interviewing members at the same time. And we realized, why not combine those two efforts? And so just January of 2021, that's when we officially started our SaverLife advocacy arm. And at the forefront, SaverLife members were always at the center of what we did. And I think it's important to, whether it's policy or advocacy related, always centering people and their experiences. And what we learned through interviewing our members is that SaverLife members are eager to speak out. They're eager to share their stories and their experiences, and they want to come to the table and help. And we believe that a large part of having members speak out is realizing that there's no such thing as people being voiceless. Everyone has a voice, and it's just a matter of bringing people to the table or passing the mic. And so that's what we really want to focus on in our advocacy work, is providing that platform for our members, especially to share what they've gone through and help us advocate alongside them for better policies in California and nationwide as well. And I want to share from the get-go, our agenda was born from the priorities that our members wanted to work on. So initially, our policy agenda came from surveying our members and interviewing them and asking them, what issues are showing up in your life? And a number of them came back and said, it was housing issues, it was lack of transportation or the cost of transportation. It was the cost of childcare or daycare and a multitude of other things. What impacts their personal finances. And so from that, all of last year and this year especially, we were working with our members to advocate for different policies that could impact them, whether that was specifically the California Renters Tax Credit, SB 843, whether that was expanding the child tax credit. And going into next year, we are especially excited to introduce our SaverLife Advocacy Panel. And so that's going to be a group of 10 hand-picked, vetted SaverLife members who voluntarily wanted to join this group and help us advocate, whether that's on behalf of wherever they live in their state or and alongside us here. So a little bit about them. I think going back to what Ronell said about compensating people for their experiences, we are very fortunate enough to be able to have a stipend for these folks for the entire year of 2023. So we'll be compensating them on a quarterly basis for all the work that they do. And a number of the things they'll be working on is meeting with the entire group to talk with what they want to prioritize as a group, what advocacy issues matter to them, talking with the media, providing testimony if possible, and bill hearings, and if there are any additional opportunities where they can go in person, we want to be able to hopefully compensate them as well for their time and travel, because we realize if they're taking time off to do something advocacy related, we want to make sure that if that was a day they had to work, that they're adequately compensated for their time and potentially the transportation they had to take to get to a place where they can provide that in-person testimony. Additionally, I'll share some quotes from folks we've interviewed who were interested in joining this panel. Amy from Kentucky said she wanted to be a voice for issues that matter to people, especially in rural areas where their voices tend not to be heard. Yukiko from Virginia shared that SaverLife has been a great resource for me, and I would love to be a bigger part of this and make changes in people's lives. And lastly, Teresa from Ohio shared, as a retiree, I've been on the working side, and now depending on Social Security, I feel my voice would benefit the future. And those are just three of the handful of folks that we've selected to be a part. And selected from our SaverLife members to be a part of our upcoming SaverLife advocacy panel. We're excited to share that one of our future advocacy panelists was even featured on a recent national webinar in Michigan, testifying how the child tax credit, helped her and her family pay for childcare, and especially when things were uncertain, cover gas and pay for groceries in light of inflation affecting all of our personal finances. But I'll end on a note that if any of you are looking to partner with us or work with our advocacy panelists, we'll definitely be open to talking with you all about how that could come to fruition. And that's about it, Anne.
All right, Danielle, you guys are always up to so many cool things at SaverLife. So it's great to kind of hear the latest and just how you all are evolving and bringing your members really to the center of your work, and for them to really be driving your work. Yeah, we have time for some questions. All our panelists are still here. Yeah, feel free to put a question in the chat, or, just shout it out, whatever works. Any questions on anyone's minds for the panelists? Anything you'd like to hear a little more about, or? just going to give people a second. I'm looking here. Julia, I know, had some questions about, you know, if there were authors for, I think, the commissary bill. My understanding is they're still looking for an author. Julia also wrote something I thought was interesting. My organization uses the term proximate leadership to reinforce the lived experience, expertise of our directors and leadership team.
And
Interesting.
would
Yeah,
you
go
mind
ahead,
if I
Paul.
make would you mind if I just make some final comments like related to fines
Yeah.
and fees?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to uplift SB 1106, which we're proud co-sponsors of this year as well, which prevents restitution from becoming a barrier for someone trying to expunge their record. Um, Oftentimes restitution, the reason why someone committed the crime, is because they didn't have enough money. To leave them with debt, but then leave that as a barrier for them, to obtain like employment. So this was a major win for us to, prevent that from becoming a barrier for people expunging their records so that they can get, a nice job, a decent paying job. But I also just wanted to uplift some possible fines and fees related stuff going into the new year. As I mentioned, we would like a full repeal of civil assessments. We were able to eliminate all of the retroactive debt. Um, I don't know if you noticed in the chat, but I mentioned that there were 90 administrative fees when we started, and now there's 46 remaining. So we would like to grapple with that as well as the phone calls in the county jail and making those free, because SB 1008 did make phone calls in the prisons free. However, it didn't make county jails free. On the topic of restitution, we would like to, attack head-on youth restitution as well, and preventing that debt, transferring over to parents or even youth who don't have any employment. A lot of people, I know I shared with my story of CDCR taking 55% of the money that I put on people's books. However, they also garnish the wages of incarcerated people as well. If it isn't bad enough, they're already making close to nothing, 8 cents at most, maybe 30 cents. But, the system, also garnishes their wages as well. So to think that for someone who's only making, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they're making 55 cents an hour, which many of them are not. For 55% of that to be garnished, I don't know how they expect someone to provide for themselves while incarcerated. I just wanted to uplift a lot of those issues because those are things that we would like to take on into the new year, as well as ending involuntary servitude. Um, you know, in 2022, a lot of people believe that slavery no longer exists. However, in the federal constitution, slavery still exists and is allowed for punishment of a crime. And each state has their own version of the constitution, as well as California. And this year, our state, the legislators voted to keep the language of involuntary servitude, another name for slavery, in our Constitution. And if we're able to remove that, then we can spark a conversation of actually paying currently incarcerated people minimum wage. And, we can treat them as the humans that they are.
Yeah, Paul, thank you for underscoring that. There's so much, you know, really crucial kind of work moving forward and things at stake in this next legislative session that I really hope all of us can come together, you know, and work to make sure that, you know, if someone works, that they're paid. I think and they're paid fairly. You know, it seems, I feel like a lot of these challenges are, you know, to the general public, oftentimes are hidden in plain sight. And, you know, it's really up to kind of all of us to talk about what's wrong with them, what a better way is, and to, you know, really work together to make these changes. I just want to ask, you know, the other panelists if there's, yeah, just, you know, anything on your mind, you know, as we start to, you know, draw towards the end of this conversation.
One thing I'll say is that we all have a lived experience, and I think that brings us in alignment in a lot of ways. And we traditionally have, you know, a practice of identity politics in our society, which I think becomes relevant sometimes, but oftentimes it really presents a lot of gaps, because I think a lot of times there's a lot of diversity and experience within one person's identity. And if you're only centering the identity, you lose the diversity of experience. And I feel with lived experience leading the conversations that we have, we can build stronger coalitions, because some people have a lot of the same experiences that also may have different identities. So I think if we can really look at the common experiences and try to address the equity in lived experience, because there's a lot of disparities under that, we can build some different coalitions and stronger coalitions. The other thing too is, I think politically we take an adversarial approach versus trying to build alignment across stakeholder groups. And so with Growing Greatness Now, we definitely try to master a process that really strategically builds alignment. And one of the things that I'd say is that we have more alignment on our values than we really think. There's a value principle like theory of change, permaculture design. There's 15 principles on there. But the 3 ethics of it are people care, earth care, and fair share. And I feel if we can keep those things in mind when we're doing our work, we'll definitely be able to leverage a value-based system that circumvents the identity politics that we've traditionally played over the last several decades, and really start looking at it in relation to lived experience. Again, our goal as a society should be fair share, people care, and earth care. That's the only thing that will maintain sustainability for all of us. And it requires collaboration of all of us. We're all stewards in the time and space that we share. And I hope that moving forward, we can identify with our experiences in a way that allows us to bring equity to the forefront for everyone.
Thanks, Ronell. I was just writing that down in the chat. Fair share, people care, and earth share. Thank you. Angel, Danielle, anything on your minds as we draw to a close?
No, actually, no. Paul and Ronell, they said it all. You have to have the lived experience and diverse lived experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, Angel, I've gotten to work with, you know, you, Paul, and Ronell kind of, you know, in the Capitol and just kind of on these advocacy campaigns. And it's also, you know, it's interesting to when you all are speaking, there's so much power in it, kind of with the legislators. I feel like people really kind of like stop what they're doing and listen. I think, and one of the reasons that might be happening is because sometimes it can be unusual, to hear kind of directly from someone who has experienced, kind of a lot of these challenges. And, that should not be the case, really. That should be the norm. Danielle, Nabila, anything on your mind?
I would just say that, to normalize what you said, right? That folks oftentimes, like when legislators hear those stories, right? They feel compelled and they're touched, and, their feelings that are great, but they need to be long lasting, right? I think that sometimes, like, when we hear folks testifying, and that's one of the things that I try to ensure that I'm not allowing for my volunteers or for folks that are sharing their stories to be tokenized and to be like brought as like, oh my God, here's another sad story, right? But that we're using their stories to change and to make changes through systems, but that their stories are not just being tokenized, right? And they're not like another sad story and, oh my God, poor you went through all those struggles. I remember that in one of my previous jobs, when I first got introduced, I was asked to tell people my struggles, like, tell us how you got where you are today, assuming that just because of how I sounded or how I looked that I had lived through struggles, which I did. But the fact that like that was how I was introduced, I always like stood in the back of my head of like, just because you're brown or you're black or whatever doesn't mean that you've come from struggle. Oftentimes you will hear their stories, but to always like associate that with the other, that lets me know that there needs to be so much more change that needs to happen. So it's one of the things that I try to do with my advocates and with our volunteers is like ensuring that they are authentic and they're not ashamed of their story, but they're not being tokenized, and that we are changing systems through their stories. That I think that that's very important for me in the work that I do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that I'm glad you called that out, like this tokenism and like, bringing people out. I mean, I feel like, and I'd love Paul or Angel or Ronell to call me on this too, if it's like not true. But, I think that, again, it's always a work in progress. All these coalitions, there's a lot of things we could all do better. I want to say that, but I think to have, Paul, Angel, Ronell, like people with lived experience, people from grassroots organizations, like in the leadership kind of structure and in the decision making structure kind of these coalitions is pivotal, so because we all know like you face some hard choices, when you're advancing stuff through the legislative or the budget process. And for, Angel, Paul, Ronell, just to have people who can help, all of those coalitions have a value of, deferring and listening to, what is the most important, if we're about to cut this deal, with a legislature, like what's the most important thing we need to hang on to? I feel like I can remember many moments when, you all were weighing in kind of about that. And it was just really important, to shape, what we would let go and what we wouldn't.
And if I may just make one last remark, but yes, it is important to lead with those who have a lived experience, though we cannot do this by ourselves and everyone has a role. I think Ronell said it best earlier as far as making space for, allies to join, we raising the awareness to these issues. We all have a role in this, and I just encourage everyone to use their platform to, uplift these issues as well as raise awareness and spread the word.
Yeah, absolutely. Danielle, anything on your mind as we draw to a close?
Yeah, I think one thing I had on my mind was, I think we're all aware how bills and legislation, how there's just such complicated language and jargon there that's so, just it's difficult to understand. I think a really big part of being a good advocate is helping break down that language and helping, and just essentially making it more understandable, because once you do that, you can get more people on board. We just had the midterm elections, and I don't know about you all, but the number of issues there were to vote here in California, there were just so many. And once you break down and make that legislation, make that issue a lot easier to understand, you can get more people on board. And once you get people advocating, whether that's for or against a certain issue, and especially people who would be impacted by that bill, I think it's even better.
Yeah. No, well said. Thank you so much. Any questions from the audience or anything on anyone's mind before we close? I just want to underscore Cecilia Perez put her email in the chat. If you want to learn more about any of these organizations or get on, any of these lists, please, thanks, Cecilia. Please contact Cecilia. She can hook you up. There's so much important work to do. And I think Andrea is joining us here at the end. Hi, Andrea. We are just wrapping up.
Hi. I just came to see how y'all were doing. Looks like you had a very active audience.
Yes, we did. It was a great discussion. And I think we're just getting ready to close. I want to thank all of our panelists. I learned a lot. And just really, really appreciate all of you and the work you're doing. So much has been accomplished, and there is a lot of important work ahead, a lot at stake in this legislative session. I'm excited all of you are kind of digging in, to make things happen, and just, continuing to look forward to work with all of you. It's really going to take all of us, and just really want to encourage everybody who's listening as well to, please get involved. So thank you so much.
I want to just encourage you all who attended this amazing panel to please check out the recordings of other sessions. So while you all were here, there was another wonderful panel going on about college savings accounts and how every child born after July of this year will have all their own child savings account, and it will be slowly rolling out to older kids and kids who are identified as low income or homeless or foster youth will get even more money. So I know we have a lot of parents here and a lot of folks who have families. So please check out the recording. It's got great information. And like I've said and continue to say, CABC is a space for all of us to come together and learn about each other. Not least of which is because we all have resources to offer one another. So at the end of the day, we're all fighting for a lot of the same community, and we all need the help that we can get. So please check that out. Please stay for the next panels that are happening at 2:30, and be sure to join us tomorrow for some amazing conversations about what the political landscape looks like going into legislative season and choosing our policy priorities, which you can check out as well. So thank you again, and we'll see you at additional panels.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you to all of our panelists again.
Hi, Anne. I think Andrea told us to stay on for a few more minutes. I can stay on here to make sure that it's recording through the
Okay.
end. Yeah.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much, Cecilia.
Of course. Bye.
Bye.